All right, everybody, get ready because today we are taking a deep dive into the world of UFOs, UAPs, and
business opportunities.
Oh, yeah, did I forget to mention that?
Maybe.
We're going to be listening to some fascinating data today, folks, all thanks to you.
That's right. You sent us this 2024 survey from an organization called CIDR, and I gotta say, this is some really intriguing stuff.
Okay, so before we go any further, spill the tea.
Sure.
Who is this CIDR group?
So CIDR stands for Scientific Investigation and Gathering of High-Priority Extraterrestrial Reports.
Catchy.
And they're really trying to bring some serious scientific rigor to a field that's often been overlooked, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And this is where it gets really interesting. They're not just interested in research for research's sake. They actually want to know if there's a viable business model here.
Okay, so they're thinking beyond just the usual documentaries and, the conspiracy theories and all that.
Exactly.
So let's get down to it. They're looking for cold, hard cash. But do people even think this stuff is worth investigating?
Well, according to CIDR's findings, a whopping 72.68% of people believe that UFO or UAP sightings deserve serious scientific investigation.
Wow, over 70%.
Yeah, it's a pretty significant jump from what we've seen in previous years.
Interesting.
And it really suggests that maybe we're entering a new era of openness towards these kinds of unexplained phenomena.
Okay, that's a pretty clear message. But believing in something and actually wanting to, put your money where your mouth is are two different things.
That's very true.
So did CIDR ask about government funding?
And they did. They wanted to know if people would support using taxpayer dollars for new studies, data analysis, all that, on UAPs and UFOs. And while the support is there, it's not quite as overwhelming, coming in at about 65.93% in favor of government funding.
So even though it seems like people are more open to the idea, they might not be ready to open their wallets just yet.
Maybe they need a little more convincing.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But what's the holdup?
Well, when asked about, all these unexplained sightings that we hear about,
Right.
the most popular explanation among those surveyed was still...
Let me guess, swamp gas.
Not quite, but close. Just something natural we can't yet explain. That was the top answer.
Okay, so people are open to the unknown, but still prefer a more down-to-earth explanation.
Yeah.
At least for now.
For now.
Makes sense. But what about the stigma, of actually talking about this stuff? Has that changed at all?
Actually, that's one of the most encouraging findings in the whole survey.
Really?
Yeah, only 29.89% of people said they would feel uncomfortable discussing or reporting UFO or UAP sightings because of stigma.
Wow, that's way lower than I would thought.
It's a significant drop from previous years, and it really shows that people are becoming more comfortable sharing their experiences without fear of being ridiculed.
So maybe, just maybe, we are entering a new era of openness.
Could be.
Not just in terms of scientific curiosity, but in terms of social acceptance as well.
Yeah. It's like people are finally realizing this is a conversation worth having.
Exactly. And, even with less stigma, there's still this gap between believing and actually reporting a sighting.
Oh, so people are still hesitant to actually, make that call. Yeah. The survey found that while about half the people said they definitely report a UFO sighting, a good chunk, about 20% admitted they'd had experiences they didn't report.
Interesting. So what's the holdup? I mean, is it about who to tell or how to tell them, or maybe a lack of trust?
It's a bit of a mystery, right? Like, what's the missing link?
Well, maybe CIDR has some ideas about that, because they also asked about using a dedicated UFO UAP app.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
And they dug into what features people would want most. So what'd they find?
Look at this. Almost half of those surveyed, like 45.36%, said they'd absolutely keep an app on their phone specifically for logging a potential UFO sighting.
Wow. So we're talking almost half of people ready to turn their smartphones into, like, extraterrestrial hotlines.
Pretty much. It's like a UFO bat signal right in your pocket.
I like it. And, it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because we're dealing with a topic that's, shrouded in mystery, often dismissed, ridiculed. Having a tool that feels discreet, reliable, maybe even a little bit cool, that could really change the game for reporting.
Right. It makes it more approachable, less intimidating.
Totally. And it seems like CIDR really thought this through, because they even asked about people's app preferences.
Oh, yeah. They wanted to know, would you rather have an app or a separate device? Something you had to carry around.
Okay, so like a dedicated UFO detector versus just using your phone.
Exactly. And the people have spoken. Overwhelmingly, they prefer an app. We're talking almost 60% going for the convenience of their smartphone.
Makes sense. I mean, who needs another gadget cluttering up their pockets these days?
Rare phones are already doing like a million things.
Exactly. But let's get down to business here. Literally, did CIDR find out how much people would actually pay for this UFO hunting app?
They did. They asked people what they'd be willing to shell out for an app that offered alerts, anonymous reporting, citing maps, works.
Whole shebang?
Yep. And the average price people were comfortable with was a one-time fee of $32.
$32. That's less than a ticket to that new space opera everyone's raving about.
Right? It's like a drop in the bucket for most people.
Cider might actually be onto something here. But wait, it gets even wilder, because they didn't stop there. They also asked about add-on devices for phones.
Oh, yeah, the things people came up with.
Some of these responses sound like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Totally.
Huh.
Almost 20% of people said they'd be interested in a spectrographic device that could attach to their phone and analyze light from potential UFOs.
Whoa, hold on. Now, that's what I call taking citizen science to the next level.
Right. Imagine a world where amateur UAP enthusiasts are collecting actual scientific data.
That could revolutionize how we study this whole thing.
No doubt. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've got to talk about the elephant in the room.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
Trust. Or maybe the lack of it. Did the survey address whether people trust the government with this kind of information?
They have to have asked that, right? I mean, that's a big one.
They did, and the results are pretty telling. A significant portion of people, about 35.52%, believe that governments are holding back information about UFO and UAP sightings.
Okay, so there's definitely some skepticism there. Makes sense.
And when it comes to trusting the analysis of their potential sighting, whether it's from the government or a private company, a solid 40.88% expressed doubts.
Wow. Okay, so over a third of people don't trust the powers that be with this stuff. That's huge.
It's a clear sign that transparency is going to be key here.
Absolutely.
All right.
People are curious, they're eager to get involved, but they're not naive.
Right. They want to know that the information they're getting is the real deal.
No more cover-ups, no more shadowy figures in smoky rooms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People want the truth, and they want it now.
Which makes you wonder then, right? Who do people trust with this stuff? If it's not the government and they're not so sure about private companies either, where does that leave us?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it really highlights the need for transparency and really solid methodology in this field. People are definitely hungry for information. We see that, but they want to know it's credible, reliable, that there's no hidden agenda.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We want the full X-Files treatment, but without the smoking man pulling strings in the background.
Exactly. Transparency is key. But this whole thing goes way beyond just data points and evidence. We're talking about deeply held beliefs about our place in the universe, and those beliefs can be seriously shaken by the idea of life beyond Earth.
Well, Sider asked people how they'd react if we found definitive proof of extraterrestrial life. Did they get into, what kind of reactions people would have?
Yeah, it was pretty fascinating, actually. They found a huge range of responses, everything from terrified to hopeful, with, all sorts of things in between.
So kind of like that Arthur C. Clarke quote, "Two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe or we're not. Both are equally terrifying."
Exactly. It seems like that sense of awe and maybe a little bit of fear is definitely at play here. And speaking of awe, Sider also dug into the whole question of spiritual significance.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so we're talking full-blown Close Encounters vibes or something a bit more, down to earth.
It was actually a real mixed bag, which is interesting in itself. About 31% of people said thinking about UFOs, prompts some reflection but doesn't really impact their existing spiritual beliefs. But get this, a significant portion, 28%, said the idea of UFOs and aliens would actually clash with their worldview.
Wow. Okay, so a pretty significant portion are not down with the mothership.
Not so much, which just goes to show you this isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
It's like this weird mix of curiosity and potential discomfort.
Right?
Yeah. We want to know, but are we ready for what we might find?
Exactly. And that tension is what makes this whole topic so captivating, right? It forces us to confront the limits of our own knowledge and to consider perspectives that we might find radical, unsettling, maybe even awe-inspiring.
Totally. It's like we're standing on the edge of something huge here, like a real paradigm shift in how we understand our place in the universe.
Yeah.
But it also comes down to how we as a global community figure out how to navigate this whole thing.
Well, and speaking of community, it seems like that's a big part of Sider's whole vision, right? They're not just talking about building an app, they're talking about building a movement.
Right, like a global network of UFO hunters.
Exactly. A whole community of people actively engaged in UAP research, sharing data, collaborating to try and unravel all these mysteries.
So it's not just about technology or data. It's about tapping into that very human desire to explore, to connect, and to make sense of the unknown.
Absolutely. But let's circle back to the whole business model for a second. I mean, building an app is one thing, but can they really make this sustainable? People might pay a one-time fee, but what about down the line?
Right, because people are fickle.
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely downloaded my fair share of apps and then promptly forgotten about them.
Well, Cider thought about that too. The survey explored interest in paid features like really in-depth data analysis, personalized insights, that kind of thing.
Okay, so basically taking it to the next level for those who really want to get into the weeds.
Right, and here's where it gets interesting. A solid 67% were willing to pay a yearly fee for that kind of advanced analysis, most opting for somewhere between $5 and $20 a year.
So they could be looking at a subscription-based model, kind of like what we see with streaming services these days.
Exactly. People are already used to paying for premium content, so why not premium UFO insights?
It's true. We're already paying for that true crime documentary fix, so why not a little extraterrestrial intrigue on the side?
Exactly. And it's not like they're the first ones to try this. There are already UFO and UAP apps out there,
Right.
but what Cider is proposing feels different. More comprehensive, more focused on building trust and community and really, digging into the data.
Plus, let's be real, there's just something undeniably cool about having access to that kind of information.
Right.
Imagine just scrolling through your phone, seeing a real-time map of UFO sightings in your area with eyewitness accounts, expert analysis. It'd be like having your own personal X-Files episode.
Citizen science meets the digital age.
Well, folks, we've barely scratched the surface of this whole UFO thing, and this CIDR survey is just the tip of the iceberg. But the good news is we've got you covered. We'll link to the full report in our show notes so you can become your own data detective.
Who knows, maybe you'll be one to finally crack the code and unlock the mystery of UFOs once and for all.
And if you do, you know where to find us. Till then, keep your eyes on the skies, your minds open to the possibilities, and as always, happy exploring.